Hello, everybody. Okay. So how many people sitting in this room, how many of you would consider yourselves creatures of convenience? And you know what I mean. If it's faster, easier, or one step away, you'll do it. So whether that's paying a bill or paying for something online, then you'll do that. And I get it because I do it too. But one thing that I have learned recently is that the convenient route isn't always the best route. And as a fitness convert, and I must say a very recent fitness convert, I've seen the power of taking the stairs and taking my time. And as a communication specialist, I've realized that in my rush to get a message across quickly, I sometimes leave out the details that matter most. You see, the thing is, communication isn't about speed. It's about clarity, strength, and effectiveness. And sometimes the most difficult conversations are the ones that we can't afford to skip. Communication is important. And convenience, yes, it is a shortcut until it starts to cut out what matters. So when communication breaks down, when tensions rise, and also when understanding slips, what is the one thing that can hold everything together? That's tact. It's a short word with a packed meaning, and it's also a word that we love to throw around when we see the lack of it in others. But simply defined, tact is the skill and sensitivity in dealing with others or with difficult issues. Essentially, it's about being diplomatic and thoughtful in your interactions. It is the ability to make a point without making an enemy. Now, some of you might know what tact means, but for those of you in the room who are still grappling with what it means, I bet you have experienced it. It looks like this situation. You're sitting in a meeting and a colleague says something rather offensive to you. And in your mind, the only feasible solution would be to punch that colleague in the throat. But you don't do it, you hold back, because you understand the long HR process and how in this economy you actually need your salary, but also that it's extremely unprofessional to behave that way. So you hold back and you decide to address it later. Tact. Or you are sitting in a restaurant and a waiter comes to you with the wrong order, but you don't throw a fit because you understand that everybody has a bad day and everybody makes mistakes. That is tact. So how about a visual, a scale of sorts, to help us understand this better? So on the right is your Super Saiyan level of tact. This is just sheer brilliance, while on the left is the complete non-existence of it. So how about we use an example of people that we do know to make this example come to life? So on the right, we have Christiane Amanpour. And some of you may know who she is. She's a well-known and well-respected CNN journalist and someone that I feel has modeled tact commendably throughout her career. Whether you are a head of state or a young student, she knows how to address you respectfully, she knows how to be considerate, but she also challenges you on your bad decisions or failures, but she has a way of weaving her questions in an undeniable manner. So we'll put her as a good example of tact, what we can strive for. Now, on the other side, we have our favorite, Kanye West. And not just any Kanye West, the 2007 Kanye West to be exact. Now, those of you who are hip-hop heads in this room will understand and know how Kanye West was at this point in his career. Absolutely zero tact. Some of his outbursts over the years includes him defaming some of his family members and saying that slavery is a choice. So I think you and I can agree that at some point Kanye lacked tact, at the very least. So as you sit here, I'm sure that you can think of at least 3 people in your life who lack tact, because I can as well. But where do you sit on this scale? I have said all of this about tact, but why is it something important that you need to hear about today? Because communication isn't optional. It's the undercurrent of everything that we do at work, at home, in every single relationship. And we are not islands. We are wired for connection, whether we like it or not. And so in order to survive in a world full of humans, we actually need the skill to handle them. And that skill is tact. Now, there's only one successful way to navigate this journey, and that is to take the stairs. So what does taking the stairs in tactful communication entail? Well, it encompasses a whole lot, but there are two most important ones that I'll draw to your attention this afternoon, and those are consideration and listening. You see, when you're walking up the stairs, you are careful about where you place your feet. You pay careful attention, and if someone wants to pass you, you move out of the way in order to leave them some room. And just like that, tact requires careful consideration. Now, in terms of careful consideration, there are two ways to achieve this. The first one being self-awareness. You've got to be aware of how you speak to people and how you make them feel. You need to pay attention to your tone and how you make others feel when you talk to them. Remember that comfort isn't a free pass for carelessness. So you need to filter your speech, whether you are in the comfort of your own home, in your friend's lounge, or in the boardroom. You need to ask yourself a question every time before you speak. Is what I'm saying right now the right thing? And when you're unsure, seek clarity from trusted friends and family. The next way that you can achieve careful consideration is through self-regulation. Now, this one is a bit difficult because most of the conversations we engage in are quite emotional in nature, or they at least evoke an emotional response. And at the rate at which communication happens on a daily basis, where would we even get the time to regulate our emotions? Well, there's just one tip. Next time somebody wants to say something to you or has gone ahead and said something to you that is rather offensive or it irritates you, don't respond immediately. Get up and boil the kettle. I mean, literally get up and boil the kettle. Next time you get a text message or an email that makes your blood pressure rise, get up, boil the kettle, yes, even in this Durban summer season that we have. Make yourself a cup of tea or coffee, stir your thoughts, think about it, and then respond. And if you find that you are still simmering, please let AI be your filter. Please. Simply open Microsoft Copilot or ChatGPT and ask it to draft a considerate response for you. Cool down and then communicate. And I know this is not easy because it's not the default setting in our minds. And while taking the stairs is healthier, it doesn't guarantee that we won't trip and fall, that we won't take 10 steps forward and 50 steps back. But what taking the stairs enables us to do is it enables us to gain clarity, to step back, to think about what we need to say and how we need to respond. Now, I know it's starting to feel a lot like a therapy session, but the next main point is a bit lighter, I promise. Tactful communication also requires paced precision. So since tact involves being diplomatic, remember what I said about that, the ability to make a point without making an enemy, and since tact involves being thoughtful in your interactions, then taking the time when you communicate is important. It's the only way that you can be precise. Paced precision is achieved by listening attentively. Now, I'm wondering if any of you remember listening comprehension tests. They were quite popular in primary school and a bit of high school. I used to hate those tests so much. But what the teacher would do is he or she would stand in front of the class and read the story out aloud once But if the teacher was nice, maybe she'd read it twice. But your duty through that entire time was to listen, to rid yourself of every single distraction around you and listen. And your ability to listen determined whether you passed or failed the test. And that's because every question that followed was solely based on the story that was read aloud. Now, if listening tests were tough, real life listening is an even greater challenge, but also a greater skill. Some people master it, and when they do, it's completely unforgettable. Take Oxford University professor Sir Isaiah Billin's recollection of a dinner that he had with President John F. Kennedy. When he was asked about this encounter, he didn't highlight Kennedy's charisma or eloquence or intelligence. He spoke about his ability to listen. Berlin described it like this: he listened with extreme intentness. One of the things which struck me most forcibly was that I've never known a man who listened to every single word that was uttered more attentively. One was made to feel nervous and responsible by the fact that obviously every word registered. He replied, always very relevantly. He really listened to what one said and answered that. Now, I want to go back to the beginning of the quote because I want to grab some words from here that I feel truly encompass what listening is. Words like intentness, every single word, listening to every single word, attentively. And moving on to the second part of the quote, we see that listening also entails every word registering, replying always very relevantly, rarely listening and answering that. Now, active listening is important, attentive listening even more so. And this was exemplified by President Kennedy. And we see that it truly involves understanding what a person is saying, which is crucial for effective communication. It's the step before you respond. And while we might be tempted to answer quickly, sometimes before fully understanding a person, there's no harm in taking your time to give a thoughtful response, even if it means providing that response the next day. Because let's face it, you just might be in a better headspace tomorrow. Unless you're a Man United fan. In which case, there is no better headspace the next day, unfortunately. But that could change because they're playing this afternoon, so we'll see. So you may be sitting here and wondering, Ruth, what if someone responds to me in an unpalatable manner? Even after I've carefully considered what I'm going to say to them, and even after I've regulated my own emotions. Shouldn't I match their unpalatable response? You know, eye for an eye? Well, no, because tact doesn't bend to one's inability to communicate effectively with you. Tact is being level-headed at all times, even when the conditions are unfavorable. You see, tact is an endless staircase. There's no elevator to mastering it. Step by step, we learn, we adjust, and we grow. It keeps us sharp, it keeps us humble, and always improving. There's no quick fix for tact because no two people think, react, or reason the same way. And true mastery of tact would mean successfully navigating every possible human interaction. And since that's impossible, the lesson never ends. As long as people are around in this world, there will always be a need for tact. So then maybe we need to edit this scale slightly because in all honesty, the aim is not to be more like Christian Amanpour and less like Kanye West. The aim actually here is to be a better communicator today than you were yesterday. So in your next conversation, your next phone call, and even your next argument, just ask yourself these two questions. How can I be more considerate? And how can I listen better? You see, influence, eloquence, and a loud voice can really turn heads, but it doesn't mean that you are an effective communicator. Tact isn't about being the most powerful speaker in the room. I think the best display of tact is knowing when power comes from not speaking at all. Sometimes the most effective communication isn't your speech. It's a pause, it's a breath, and it's a choice to hold back. So, when the moment calls for it, remember, wait, keep quiet, think, listen and observe, and only then respond. Thank you.